Hello and welcome back to another episode of Wealthy Expat. This week I got Chris Booth from Lydian Finance on the show with me. How are you, Chris?
Yeah, very well, thanks, Chris. It's the Chris and Chris show, so
Exactly.
This is nice and easy for me.
How are things going in Australia at the moment? How are you finding the lockdown?
Oh, look, I'm in Sydney with a few older kids, so we're toughing it out. But the great thing about it, still can exercise on the harbour for a sail, so that kind of gets me by for the next week. Yep. So
Can't complain about that.
All good, mate. We're doing our best,
That's good. That's good. Have you got any sailing trips planned? Actually, are you allowed to leave New South Wales on the waters at least?
No. I can go for a circle around the harbour, and that's about as far as I get. Okay. So but that's plenty right now. It's too cold to go any further.
Yeah, exactly. It is at the moment. You'll have to have some big trips in store following the lockdowns and get out and exploring.
Plenty. Yep.
Is there anything planned for the sailing front of things? Have you got any trips?
Well, funnily enough, I was supposed to be going with a friend this week, sailing from the Gold Coast to Whitsundays, but nice. We had to park that plan. But we'll go. So I work on a party boat around the harbour too, and awesome. I drive a little boat around the harbour and help people get drunk and then get them off the boat. And assume no responsibility. So that's it's fun. But we were going to take that boat up to the Whitsundays right now, but nice. With the lockdown and things, we can't do it. So we'll park it for next year. But I'll have to put my speedos away for a little while longer.
Oh well, at least you got the luxury of doing it. It's they're coming up to the end of summer over in the UK, and it has been freezing the last week or so. You have these glimmers of the sun coming through and some nice warm days, and then when the sun goes down, the wind picks up and it gets absolutely freezing. So
you've got the luxury of having a quick trip to the Med for a autumn break. So hopefully you can do that.
That's true. You need to get away. I thought to start off with, we discuss Lydian Financial Services in a bit more detail. In a sense, you can give us a bit of a rundown on how you guys work and where you started, or how you started your journey, how you got into the financial services game. And just give us a bit of an understanding of your journey so far, really, with the financial world. If you have to do so.
So, I mean, look, I've been mortgage broking for 12 years, banking for 20 years, in banking in different roles for 26 years. So, being 50 this year, you get a bit of experience through that tenure. And am I getting better? I don't know, but certainly getting a little bit wiser from the mistakes I've made in the past and things like that. So the juncture we're at right now, we a friend of mine and myself, we decided to start up our own mortgage brokerage business this time last year. And Lydian is her, so she's our little baby. Okay. And really the goal for us is Lydian's all about getting a good team of professionals, being our mortgage broker team. We support those guys with a strong community. So we've got a space where we can share deals, scenarios, and troubleshoot applications. Second to that, we've got a very strong administration back office where we help our clients and also our mortgage brokers process that heavy burden of paperwork as well. And then lastly, we work with extremely good partners like yourself. So businesses like Wealthi who are dealing with clients, and part of that client service proposition is that they need finance, and we deal with like financial planners, accountants, lawyers, and those type of partnerships, and really plug in our mortgage broking, our lending services to those businesses, which is fantastic. And we've had a lot of support since we started last year. The team has grown. It was my Jerry Maguire moment. Who's with me? I've been very fortunate to be. But I've been very fortunate to meet some really good mortgage brokers who've decided that Lydian is a good fit for us together. And we're in partnership now with, I think we've got 11 mortgage brokers within the team today, and we're slowly recruiting, mortgage brokers each month to build that, that big pool of community. But that's
interesting. How have you found things throughout the kind of last 12 months or 18 months almost? I can imagine things have been quite busy, but have you seen like firsthand the peaks and shifts in the market really in terms of attract or interest in acquiring finance and speaking to you? Has there been a real shift in that?
Yeah, so we've been, I mean, everyone's busy, right? I think we have a lot of conversations about doing things, and getting clients comfortable to actually transact is always, that's always the next hurdle. But certainly with interest rates as low as they are, and I never thought we'd ever see an interest rate below 2% in all of my years, and that's pretty crazy. But we're at that situation right now where the new norm is a client getting comfortable with a 2.5% interest rate, which is, that conversation itself is quite difficult when you're dealing with young people, and that they've only ever experienced these low interest rates. We're having to sort of condition them to prepare for interest rates, higher rates like 6%, which is more the norm. So that's been quite interesting. Market wise, the banks are definitely open for business. I think that's important to say. But the good thing about that is a lot of the credit policies with each of the different lenders are quite different now. So it really is a time to actually have that professional advice and that professional broker support to know which lender is the most appropriate for yourself. Whatever your financial situation looks like. So the push for engaging a professional being a mortgage broker, I think has never been greater. I think the market itself, the mortgage broking market now accounts for sort of over 60% of the industry of deals settled, which is huge, which is a big change from when I started 12 years ago. So that's been interesting. Definitely. And then lastly, I think the coronavirus, as much as it's been had an impact in our lives, some of the positive impacts, if I can say that, have been that we've all had to sort of adapt and get equipped with new technology to support the client experience. And what I mean by that is the lenders now are allowing us to use DocuSign. They're allowing us to get digital loan documents completed. They're happy for us to use bankstatements.com to collect the data. Clients are happy to work within our client portal. So we've got a piece of technology where we can have Zoom conferences internal of our software. We're able to upload documents to our client portal. So the embrace of the digital process has been great. And lastly, clients are more comfortable dealing like we are today on a Zoom meeting. The days of me having to drive around Sydney to have a conversation about mortgages over the kitchen bench have gone. So that means I can get back home quite quick, have a beer and go for a walk with the dog. So those are positive things out of it, which is very nice. But so all of those things. And then lastly, clients looking to find property. I think last year there was the volumes of investment, that investor appetite really wasn't there. But in the last sort of 6 months, we've started to see clients who really want to work hard to figure out, what equity have they got available in their properties because their home residence has appreciated or their other investment assets have appreciated in line with, Sydney, Melbourne in particular, the prices of those properties increasing. And then, what is my servicing ability based around that new equity position? So we're doing a lot of work trying to prepare clients to look at future investment acquisitions wherever that might be.
Okay, that's interesting. It's interesting as well to think that a lot of those positive things that you've touched on before, but it almost feels like the pandemic sped up the process for the way in which we work now. This was always kind of coming, and it was always on the cards, the working from home, doing the Zoom, doing the Google Meets, whatever it may be. But this has almost just sped that process up to make you, or to give you that better balance between work and life. So it's interesting to see.
Well, behind the lion here is Kelly, my wife's laundry. So it's amazing how we've adapted.
That's what you spend half your day doing, just doing the washing.
That's it. Yeah.
That's the real story of Lydian. I guess the next thing that I thought we'd touch on, and this is going to be quite a broad topic, I'm sure, but I thought it'd be good for listeners, in particular expats in the UK, and expats around the world, really. But what sort of process you'd be looking at if you were going to go if you're looking to acquire finance to buy an Australian property or Australian real estate, but the process you'd have to go through if someone was going to be dealing with yourself at Lydian, for example, and how that would work in the structure that was kind of step by step to the process of acquiring the finance.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, I think the first thing to say is whether you live in Australia or you live overseas, I think the process is fairly similar. So, as the most important stage of us being engaged is be open to discuss where you are financially. Okay. And what that means for me is finding out about, where you work, what income you earn, how your income is paid. So those conversation pieces around, bonuses, commission, or whether you're self-employed, obviously where you live, that's important too. So whether if you're in the UK, well, that's different to whether you're in, a different country, because we want to understand what the taxation system is in those countries. But first and foremost, we start talking about who you are, what you do for a living, how you earn your money. Okay. And then secondly, we take that conversation to the next level about what assets in your world do you own, and we're obviously talking property being a primary asset there, but we're interested then to kind of reach further afield and understand about whether you've got shares, whether you've got ownership in companies, whether you've got any other assets in your world which potentially are deriving income as well, but also and where those assets are located. Because if you've left Australia and gone to live in the UK, but you've left a home or a property here in Australia, we can use those assets to potentially gear against for future finance. So that conversation piece are really about finding out about that person is important, and that's important, talking about their finances. And then secondly, I think we want to find out about the person, about their goals, their objectives. Also, we want to find out what their education, where do they sit in that education and knowledge around the finance and property market? Because, if we've got someone who's very comfortable in talking property, understands the finance game, well, then we're not going to be spending as much time in trying to get them up to that sort of level. But if we've got people who've never borrowed or unsure about that borrowing, and it's not their sort of specialized sort of field, well, then we do a lot of hand holding and talking about the industry in Australia, the interest rates in Australia, the types of property to purchase, and a bit more of a coaching role in that conversation. Okay. And then lastly, once we've got all of that information through that conversation, well, then we need to start kind of plugging in supporting documents to fill in our completed fact find, because our obligations as mortgage brokers are, number one, we've got to find out about the clients, but then number two, we've actually got to get those tangible pieces of evidence, as it were, to support the application as well. So then it's all about trying to collect that information, whether it be pay slips, tax returns, rates notices, rent statements, bank statements to evidence savings, superannuation statements, all of that kind of stuff. So that goes all into the melting pot. And that's before we've given any advice.
Let me get into that. And what would be the process now with documents, for example? Would it be as simple as, just thinking basically now, but attaching it to an email and sending it across, or does it have to be through secure DocuSigns, for example, or is it quite a simple process? Yeah.
So, firstly, we use a client portal, and that's and it's not we don't, every client doesn't have to use a client portal, but we find it's very, very useful, because a client can log in to the client portal from wherever they are in the world, and then they can upload those documents into our work hub. And it means that the security and the privacy obligations around that software are kept pretty strong. However, having said that, though, we are happy to take PDF documents and email to us, and then we will actually put that into our CRM system to make it secure as well. So we do have a good work hub to do that. I'm reluctant to say, I want to turn away business, but if anyone comes to me and says, look, I'm going to mail you something in the post, I'll just print it off and I'll send it to you from UK. That's probably not the kind of person I want to be working with, because that's a bit of a headache. So firstly, that digital space is important. And then second to that, getting documents signed and things, we do use DocuSign, and the lenders are allowing us to use that these days.
Okay.
The complications, I suppose, a little bit arise around that verification of identity. So when a person is based overseas, because I can't physically see them face to face, we do have to work around that, that verification of identity. But so long as we can get sort of certified identity, being passport, potentially a driver's license, potentially some Australian documentation to verify their citizenship or residency, then that definitely helps us as well.
Okay, no, it's good to know. Some interesting points. I guess another one that I was going to ask, and this is in my case, for example. So I'm an Australian resident, and I currently only hold a British passport and a British driver's license, but I do have an expired Australian passport. Is that going to cause any, if someone was in similar position to that, is that going to cause any dramas along the line, or would it all come down to that residency certificate that's going to clear the way?
I mean, the preference there obviously is get your passport upgraded. I think that's important. Yeah. So we've got a current document located in to note citizenship, but further afield to that, I mean, if you've got your citizenship certificate, well, that's good. Birth certificates to verify that you were born in Australia, that also verifies that as well. But I mean, there are ways to work around it, but if you haven't got a primary document, then it makes it a little bit more complicated. Yeah.
Okay, that's handy to know. Very handy to know. And when thinking about, so in this process, and I'm just trying to think of ways to make it as easy as possible, but what are some things that people might be able to do to speed up the process to make it as simple as possible? I know you touched on a few bits and pieces with DocuSigns and whatnot, but what would, someone preparing to acquire property overseas and they wanted to make the process as simple as possible, to make it as quick and efficient as to have a good turnaround, essentially. But what are some things that might help with that process?
Yeah, well, I think firstly, having a good deal team together. So, working with a person like yourself who's going to be out there sourcing the property. But I know, the Wealthi team have also got their partnerships with lawyers who can help with the conveyancing process, having mortgage brokers who can support with the finance process. And I think having a bit of a deal team based in Australia is quite important, because that makes the process a little bit easier. And the other thing I would encourage people to do is maintain a strong credit health position. So, if you're away for a few years, don't neglect the things that you need to do in Australia. So if you do have to lodge tax return over here, if you do have to maintain, some documentation and things in Australia, maintain it and keep it up to date, and don't let those things drift, because that can have an impact over here. And the other thing in Australia as well, I would certainly, for people who've left to go overseas, sometimes it can be quite awkward moving away, and you forget to sort of close off utility bills and redirect mail and things like that. So, having a little bit of hygiene around closing things off which aren't necessary anymore is important, because in this market, having a clean credit report, even though it may be dated because you've been overseas, is very important. And a lot of information is held on these credit reports these days. So I would certainly recommend get an up-to-date credit report, at least do it annually, and just make sure that your profile in Australia is very clean. And then lastly, working with a mortgage broker, I think having that initial consultation around, what information to collect is quite important. And also having that conversation around where the credit application sits. Is it easy? Yep, tick the box. Yep. Is it going to be a little bit difficult because of these quirks? Well, we have to do a bit more work. Or, a hard no is a good no, for me. Then don't waste any more time. But that no means, well, what do we need to do in the next 12 months to make it an easier deal, or yes,
Okay, to get ready for that, the time to come, essentially.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. And I guess that can move it on to the next question around things to avoid. And you did mention before about not, having loose ends on utility bills in Australia before you leave, and making sure you still lodge your tax return. But are there any other key things that, people should avoid when when they are seeking finance. For example, is shopping around and going to every lender a bad idea? Or you've I don't want to take business away from you, but it's like when you get your credit scores and stuff, they say don't do too many, because it could, some of them could leave a bit of a mark.
Well, I think even though you are based overseas, okay, the banks will require some bank statements from you to evidence living expenses and evidence savings and things like that. And when those bank statements are received by the lender, the lender's still going to go through them and look at the conduct of those accounts, and also look at the expenses going through those accounts, because just like we do in Australia here, we check how we spend our money. So I think having a bit of hygiene on those statements is always important. So things like Uber Eats, too many Uber Eats. I don't know whether is it Uber Eats in London?
It ticks my box. Yeah, it is Uber Eats, Deliveroo.
So
works.
So kind of avoid those.
Okay.
Yeah, and so we look a little bit more granularly at those expenses. I think one thing I forgot to mention before in getting prepared to do this, one of my top tips would actually get a power of attorney with a friend or a family member in Australia to support that signing process, even if it's just to sign some of the documents under that power of attorney here. Having a registered and current power of attorney is very good, because what that avoids is then having to get the documents to you in the UK, get them signed in the UK. And typically, because the person lives overseas, they generally have to be wet ink and then maybe mail back. And we want to avoid all that conflict. So if we can do it locally and do it with a solicitor here, that makes it a bit easier as well at the end of that process.
Okay, that's a good
other
point.
things to avoid, chopping and changing jobs a lot. I think that's always a big one. And again, the credit appetite for borrowers who earn income in a more self-employed manner. So I'm talking like short-term contractors or sole traders, what we'd call it in Australia, or also alternatively people employed through companies. That type of applicant, it makes it a lot more complicated, and generally the flexibility with the credit the credit and the lenders is less as well. So if you can, the easiest way to get the best outcome from a lender is be a salaried employee of a reputable company. Is important too.
Okay, no, that's some good points. Something to definitely note when looking into the process for a lot of the listeners. Lastly, thing that I like to close on with all of my podcasts, and I think Dom did quiz you a little bit about it on the last one, but in terms of, and this is there's no right or wrong answer as well, but what does a wealthy life mean to you?
So I think I danced in the last session, so I don't know whether that's appropriate anymore. I think it was a wealthy life.
That's going to be the thumbnail.
Look, so I try to explain to Dom, and he knows my life is full of good things. I like to sail, I like to go hiking, I like to hang out with mates, I enjoy a beer. So for me, the quality of life is all about experiences and living, doing things which you enjoy, but also I like to read, I like to learn things so I can do them myself. So for example, talking about the party boat is probably not appropriate, but to actually be the skipper of that party boat, I've got to do a course which is a coxswain's course. It's completely left field to my day-to-day job, but I've recently signed up to go back to school to TAFE to do my coxswain's course. So that for me is great, and I'm learning how to fix engines, which I'm useless at. I'm learning how to rescue people if they fall overboard, which I'm actually very good at. I've had some live examples of very drunk English people falling into Sydney Harbour and rescuing.
Not surprised.
So the Essex people are the worst. So having a I think for me, wealth is all about experiences in life. Having said that, though, Lydian one day will hopefully make me a few quid, and I'll buy that nice yacht and take it to the Mediterranean, and you and I can have a few cold San Miguel's off the coast of Spain or something.
Exactly, I'd take that any day. I'll be jumping on that boat with or without an invitation.
But just Just remember, Chris, I've got 3 expensive children, an expensive wife. I live in the eastern suburbs in Sydney, so I live like a millionaire, but I'm broke. Yeah. And my dog, when he chips his nail or breaks a tooth, he's expensive too. So there's not a lot left of me, you know.
Let's hope one day you do get that boat. I won't be holding back. I'll be the first one on it.
What about you? What about yourself? Tell me about what's it.
Yeah, so Wealthi to me, it's an interesting one. And Sam asked me about it a couple of weeks ago. And the way that I define it is having enough to live within the means of what I want to do. So not being restricted on what I want to do. I'm not too fussed about having the bougie fancy car or the Ferrari or the mega mansion or whatever, but having access to money that allows me to do things that the way I want to live my life, and travel is a big thing to me, and it's a big reason as to why I came back to the UK. But being able to enjoy the luxuries of life, and just enjoy myself in a sense is really where it comes down to, what it comes down to for me. And there's also a part of me, and it's been there for a long time, and I'm a bit of a mummy's boy, you could say, but I've always had this goal to buy that retirement house for my mum as well down the line. So that's something that I really want to tick off the list before I focus on myself. And she's had her ups and downs, but now it's something, she's always been there for me, and now it's something that I want to give back to her. So one day I'd like to do that. But yeah, I think more so for me, it's being able to enjoy the nice things in life, do what you want to do. I guess similar to you being able to do your boating and the sailing and now your skipper course and the works, but being able to enjoy, go on not be stressed for money if I go on a week holiday to Greece, for example, and get back and it's all okay, and just enjoy those sort of things and have that passive income ticking over from an investment point of view to me. So that's
and a fortnightly ticket to Chelsea. Yeah.
Exactly. You've got to sitting here somewhere, there's a Chelsea membership sitting somewhere, but yeah, get to the Chelsea games. That's sort of, one day maybe we'll have enough to get a box there, split with some mates, and we'll go and rent a box out for a season. It'd be pretty unreal. But that's really what it means.
My brother, I'll have to introduce you to him.
Yeah, is he a Chelsea fan?
I'll have to introduce you to my brother. Well, no, he's an Everton fan, but he works for a company in the Isle of Man which has got a box at Chelsea. Oh. So there you go.
You definitely have to get me introduced there.
I'll tell next time he's in London. I'll tell you. Yeah.
Here we got Man City coming up in a couple of weeks.
Too easy.
Perfect. Well, Chris, it's been great to have you on the show, Chris. Really appreciated hearing your input and I guess your opinion on the finance side of things, and give a bit of guidance to some of our listeners looking to start their journey whilst being in the UK. And buy some Australian properties. So thank you very much for jumping on today.
Thank you very much, Chris. Yeah, it's been great to talk to you, mate. You have a great night.
I will. Thank you, everyone who had tuned in today. Really appreciate you guys listening. And if you've got any questions, please feel free to reach out to myself or Chris Booth, and more than happy to help where we can. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on the podcast. And we'll see you guys again soon. Thank you.